Before we begin, this episode does include themes of suicidal ideations. If this is triggering for you, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14, or if you're outside of Australia, please find your local helpline. Your wellbeing matters and support is available. Jordan Kahu, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having us, bro. Lovely spot down here you've got. So thanks for having me.
Mate, thanks for coming on. And I was just saying, I was picking your brain before because you're obviously heavily in the content space. I'm constantly thinking, how can we make this space better in terms of lighting, content, the whole thing? Because obviously, for those who are listening and not watching the episode, we're just in my spare bedroom at home, right? And I think it's a nice little small space, but it's makeshift. We're obviously we're a year and a half into the podcast. So it's how can we maximize this space? And you had some really great points, mate. So thank you. I appreciate it.
No worries, man. This is my world. So anything I can help with, I'm willing to help.
Mate, I am keen to dive into the content space and everything to do with your journey. But mate, what a morning.
Yeah, great.
We kicked it off at S30 at your gym this morning. So, mate, very grateful. How you feeling?
Great, bro. Great. Obviously, leg day today. Don't want to skip leg day, but yeah, you were a little bit surprised when I told you it was leg day. Walked in and it's leg day today. You're wearing runners?
Bro, I came in and we did legs on Sunday. So, 3 days ago, and you're like, yeah, man, we're doing legs. Jordan, I was like, please, no. I was like, no, man. But we got through it, bro. It was beautiful.
Got it done. Great session. Yeah, lights obviously help with the ease into the day, and nice little swim. I'm a little bit jealous of where you're living because great. I need to get down here.
Well, mate, you're on the Goldie, but you're just the northern end. You need to come a little bit further south to Burleigh, Palmy, and that'll be you, bro.
I know, but the coin you need to live down these ways is ridiculous.
Just give it time, man. A couple more shoots and you'll be flying.
Hey, a couple more years, I'm here.
How many times do you train in a week? What's training looking like for you at the moment?
So training, I probably maybe 6 days. I'll probably try and have a day off. I really struggle to have that day off. I just don't like having a day off. It makes me feel,
why's that?
It just throws me out. I like, routine. Obviously, coming from a footy background, that routine is key. But when I don't train, I just feel off, and I feel like I operate a lot better when I am training. So I try and train 6 days, 7 days a week, mix it up. But I'm back running now, so yeah, bit of running, but majority I'm at the gym doing weights and bit of cardio.
Mate, and then even now that you're a couple years post footy, do you find you need to be training because you've been training for so long in your life? Is it just a daily thing that you have to do now?
Definitely. My first year, I was kind of I'm not, I wasn't in the routine. I was trying to build my business. And I always felt like there was something missing, and it was because I wasn't working out. Getting up every morning for, 15 years I was doing it for, starting my day with a workout, it obviously made me feel better. And then to go to not doing that, I was obviously missing something. So something that I learned in the very first year of business was to look after yourself first and make sure you're moving and doing all that, because it helps the mind flow.
Is that why you started the gym?
No.
Why did the gym start?
The gym started because the founders of S30 are my close mates growing up in New Zealand, and they were looking to franchise and venture out across Australia. They started in Perth. So when they were looking on the East Coast, I was like, I've got to be involved. I love training. And that's pretty much how it all began. And I love the concept, really different. My kind of vibe and my content and stuff like that is quite moody and stuff like that. So it really fits kind of my personality as well.
Yeah, but mate, it's such a beautiful space. Even rolling into the gym this morning, it's just it's kind of dark.
Yeah.
You've got the mad lighting, you've got all these really cool posters and things on the wall. It's a vibe when you walk into it, and then also such a great crew when you roll in.
Yeah,
such an awesome energy, man.
It's great. I think a lot of people, find their confidence in there because it is so dark and a little bit. It's a little bit like a nightclub. You have that little extra spring in your step and getting around and saying hello to people you probably wouldn't say hello to, but. I love it. Great space, and we've built a great community over the last couple of years.
Mate, you also, every time we come in, we took the past players in there not too long ago with one of our Keep Fit, Keep Connected events, and even that was so cool, man. We probably had 12 to 15 players, and the boys were ripping in fuck, man, this is such an awesome space.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing to bring in some of the old boys as well. Do you get many crew coming in from around Oz when they're here on the coast?
Yeah, whenever the boys are in town, obviously, I don't want to be on their case and hitting them up to come to the gym, but some of my close friends that come through, they always pop through, and it's always good to kind of work out and go and get a coffee. Pretty much what we did this morning,
Right.
with some old footy heads and footy mates.
But it's also nice when you can like come in from out of town and you've got a mate who has a gym. Like we're very fortunate here on the Goldie because like so many of our mates has gyms.
Yeah.
So we can pop into them, which is awesome. So I think that's such a cool piece, even for them, like being having a place that they can come in, train with the boys, coffee after a little swim. That's perfect.
Yeah, because you kind of miss that, especially when you're finishing. You do miss that, like that energy and that team feeling when you're training. It's really weird for professional athletes, I feel, post career to go into like a public gym and train. It's so weird. Like I couldn't stand it, which is why I went into the group fitness space, because it's you get that same kind of vibe.
Yeah. Mate, there's so many aspects of your story that I'm really keen to dive down. Like, keen to talk about the transition out of footy, your whole professional career in the NRL. But I think probably a fitting place to start is like growing up. Like, what did growing up in the Kahu household look like?
Yeah, so I had a beautiful childhood. Mum, dad, and brother. It was just us four. Loved all sport. My dad was loved rugby, loved cricket, loved softball, but he was never really any good at any of those. We always have this running family joke that the only sport he'll ever beat me in is squash. But he loved all sports, so I think that's kind of where his motivation to push us into sport. He knew the kind of values that you got out of sport, and he was just on our case. I think he understood our talents from a young age, both him and my mum. So we were doing extra training and stuff like that before schools and after schools and stuff like that, because they understood our talent and they really nurtured that.
Was that driven from your parents, or was that driven from you guys?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
A bit of both. I was always keen to do anything. If my parents said, if you do this, you'll be better, I was always willing to do it. But beautiful childhood, growing up in Wellington in New Zealand, little town called Alistown. Had some really, really good close friends that I grew up with that had the same values. One of my best mates lived down the street from me. He ended up being an All Black. We grew up around people that had same values, same family values. So my childhood was, I feel like a 90s kid was just so blessed, man. Like we were so lucky to grow up in that era.
Right. And I think it was so cool because like we didn't really have a heap of technology, to be honest. Like we might have had like a little Nintendo, if you're lucky, you know what I mean? So I think that was that's such a beautiful time. Like you obviously got a few years on me, but I think it was very similar. Whoa. Just a couple, man, just a couple. We won't air that. We can edit that out. No, I'm kidding. But like that's a beautiful time. But even because you obviously grew up in New Zealand, when did you come over to Australia?
Yeah, so I grew up playing rugby union, and I went to like a prestigious rugby union school. And because I was so young in the first 15, I wasn't playing much. And there's no club footy you can just go and play to get your fix. So like some weeks I was playing 2-3 minutes here and there. And then there was one big tournament, and I played like 2 minutes the whole tournament. I get it now, but back then I was just like, I just want to play footy.
Yeah.
I was doing all the training, training my ass off. Obviously I wasn't good enough. I was a little bit younger. And that was the moment I decided to try something else. I was like, stuff this, I'm going to league. And you weren't allowed to play league when you were at that school. It was a big no-no. So I was like, stuff you guys, I'm going to go play league. Loved it. I played in like a mixed school tournament. They put a few boys together from schools that were similar to mine that weren't allowed to play league. They just combined us all. And when we ended up winning that tournament, I loved it.
Yeah.
And then, I ended up getting picked up by an agent from that tournament. My coach of my provincial team at the time was an ex-NRL player, Johnny Lomax, and he had a few connections to the West Tigers and Tim Sheen. So they got in touch, and then, the next thing you know, I was on a plane to Australia with a scholarship at Keeper Park.
And what year was that?
That was 2008, my first year.
2008, but was that like a year 10? Like you coming midway through high school?
So I only had 1 year of college left. So I came here, and because I was that younger age, I ended up going back to year 11.
Yeah.
Did you finish year 12 here?
Finish year 12, yes.
So they put me in year 11, so I had 2 more years left when I got here.
And is that how the Bronx came about? Because you went in from high school, Keeper Park, right into the Bronx under 20 system, yeah?
Yeah, so I was on scholarship with the West Tigers, but at the end of Keeper Park, I just wasn't keen to move to Sydney. I just was not ready. Jess and I, we were 18. We would have been moving away from my dad, the security we had. So we decided to stay here on the Gold Coast. My brother played in the inaugural year of the under-20s at the Broncos. So when they found out he had a younger brother that was keen to go to the Broncos, they that was kind of my door in, step in the door. And then we won the competition that year as well. So I was like, pretty lucky that I got to walk straight into the Bronx.
That's so sick. And were you the player that I guess was talented? Because I always think that there's two kind of players, right? The guy who is talented, can walk straight in, probably picked in all the rep teams, and then they're going to get the contract. Or there's a guy who's probably a little bit subpar, kind of good, but then has to like grind and work hard. Which one of you do you think you were?
I think I was a little bit of both. I made obviously all the rep teams growing up and stuff in New Zealand. And then when I was at Keebra, we didn't, I don't remember, I don't want to say this and be wrong, but none of us played South Coast or Queensland or Australian schoolboy reps. Like, I don't think we were allowed one year.
Gotcha.
I think they just wanted us to focus on school. But I was a real extremely hard worker. I was always like training my ass off, always leading the fitness groups, doing my own things away from footy. So I'd like to say I was a little bit of both. And I came out of school, obviously I got the Peter Sterling medal in the grand final. So I was, chased by a few clubs, and I was so keen to go to the Bronx.
Where do you think that hard work comes from? Because I think about it, like even when we were in high school, there wasn't probably a lot of guys that were doing extras. And I think I was only doing extras because I had coaches and I had some really good role models to be like, well, if you want to be the best and if you want to be really great, then you got to do more than what everyone else is doing. But I had that chip. Like, did you have conversations with that? Like, where did that come from for you?
I think just from a young age, my parents just, instilled in me that, anything that you achieve comes from hard work. Both my parents, worked really hard. My dad was a courier, worked so many like crazy hours. My mum had 2 jobs. And it was all for us to kind of do our sporting stuff, like they were doing that so they could pay for that. So I don't know if I understood that at a young age, but I was just, I was willing to, do anything I could to get to where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a professional sportsman, whether that was in union or league. And I knew I had to work hard to get there. And I wasn't doing anything to kind of tarnish that. I was really well behaved as well. I was always too scared of getting in any kind of trouble.
Yeah.
When teenagers go through like the tagging phase and start tagging everywhere. Yeah. I had a bunch of mates that would tag everywhere. Like would just go for a walk or like a skate or something, and then I'd turn around, they'd just be tagging on shit. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And I'd be off down the street, like running because I was so scared. It turned into a thing where like they would just do it to like scare me, so that I'd start gassing it. And
Gotcha.
I don't know where it came from. I was just extremely determined from honestly, I reckon 4 or 5 years old. Nothing was going to stop me.
Well, that's probably why you're such a nice guy, man. That's probably got a little bit to do with it. Coming into the Brisbane Broncos, you got picked up. At what point did you get your first contract, and then at what point was like your first year in like the professional system?
So I was speaking about it on the way here. The under-20s was around back then, so I came straight into the under-20 system in the end of 2009. So we were quite lucky, you get put into that system and you can kind of understand what being a professional footballer looks like. And then obviously you had to work or study at the same time. And I worked and I knew I definitely didn't want to do that. I was a glassy at Waxies and Surfers and I hated it, bro. I was so bad. I look back and I'm like, I shouldn't have been paid for anything I'd done there. But I think going into that system really set you up really well to become a professional sports player. And then spent my first year 2010 in the 20s, and then Ivan Henjak brought me in after after a season, and then said that I was doing the full NRL preseason that following year. So that was the kind of first moment I was like, shit, I'm like not too far off now.
That's an exciting space, man. Like your first year, and it's also like, I'm keen to get your thoughts on it because we were at the Bronx at the same time. For those who are listening, like I think my first year might have been like 18 or 19 coming in. And so you were there, and we had like, there was such a cool crew, like Blairy and Lexi and Cos and Moosey, like Macca, Gillo, like far out. Like it's
great
like,
crew.
But they were your under 20s. Like a lot of the under 20s boys came through at the same time, right?
Yeah, so the Gillo, Lex, Mac is only a year older, but he was like in the system quite early. They were a couple of years ahead of me. They were my brother's year.
Sick.
But like I seen them all the time, you know, like because of my brother. But yeah, we had a great crew for so long, bro. From like 2010 all the way through to 2020, pretty much. Just like the same boys, the same crew.
And I think that's got to add to the success of like a solid amount of crew like coming through together. Like when me and Paddy did a podcast together, we were talking about I think it was just before, it was the semi-final, week before they played in the grand final.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the boys that were in the Bronx team at the same time that we were coming through under 20. So it was like Paddy, Katoni, Herbie, Payne, Keenan was there. It was just like, mate, there was like 8 of us, 9 of us that just went through, and then they got to play into the grand final. Which was really cool. And I think there's something in that where crew come through together. Like look at Jerome and Nath clearly, right? Like that little crew coming in. I think there's got to be something in that.
Definitely, yeah. I think keeping it, obviously with the money and stuff like that gets thrown around these days, it's hard to keep crew together. You know, obviously, especially if they're really good players, you can't keep the same crew together. But I feel like we enjoyed each other's company a lot, and we were willing to take unders at the Broncos because it was such a great club as well. We loved our teammates. We were playing some decent footy. So a lot of us did stay for those reasons. And I can vouch to say that a lot of those boys were taking unders for a lot of years just to stay together. Yeah,
it was a special crew. And to be honest, mate, the reason like I signed with the Bronx was because of how successful the club was. Like it's a successful club, and I thought, well, if you can make it at the Bronx, like you can make it anywhere. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how you came into Integrate, because I know from my experience when I came in, it's like you're so young, and you've got guys who you look up to, right? So you know, Corey Parker and those guys, like these are guys who I looked up to when I was like a kid. Because Cos played when he was 18, and I think I might have been like 3 or 4 when he debuted.
Wow.
He's an old boy. Anyway, but I like, you would know, like felt like I didn't say a word the first year because you're so nervous. Like you want to train well. You don't want to be that guy that drops the ball. Like how was your experience first coming into grade?
Yeah, I was kind of like, I always tell everyone I was the best. I got to experience the best of both eras. I came into an era where it was extremely like, you respect all the old boys, you know, like you walk in, you don't say anything to. Cos didn't speak to me for so long, bro. I remember just walking in, he just did these little nods at me, or like he didn't, like, I don't even reckon he knew my name for fucking 2 or 3 years. I was in the NRL, in the NRL squad for like 2 or 3 years. He probably didn't even know my name, bro. Like he didn't say hello to me. And then when I was kind of leaving, I got to, you know, be the older guy that was, you know, like super welcoming and completely different to that. But yeah, I always tell everyone, you know, I'm so grateful for the experience I had because it, you know, shaped me into the person I am today. You know, I can be that respectful figure, but I can also be this open person that people can approach. And there was some scary times in the beginning of my career. You know, at the Bronx facilities, you know, the older facilities. Yeah. There was these little benches. I don't know if you remember them. These little benches in the middle. And the lockers were all around the outside. Yeah. And you didn't got like a locker if you were playing or, you know, if you're close to playing. And so I sat on these little benches in the middle for like 3 years, bro, 3-4 years. I had like my own little milk crate underneath. So I'd really done the hard yards. But then towards the back end of my career, these guys were coming in out of school getting a locker. And I was like, come on, bro.
Mate, I had to earn my stripes here.
I always just call it Fiji because there's a little island like by myself. And I was there by myself for some years, bro. Like I was the only one there.
Is that because you came in young?
Yeah, I think so. I came in young. And then because I was injured a lot, it was just me there. Everyone else was playing around me, getting a locker. And I was just... you know, in Fiji, chilling.
Mate, it's an interesting time. Was there any stories that sort of stand out to you? Because I remember, I think when we were at Bronx, mate, similar. I had a heap of injuries. My hamstring was always tearing, and I feel like I couldn't stay on the park for ages. And I remember there was one time, I think I tore it for like the 3rd or 4th time, and we had like Lindsay there, Jess was there, like, and we were working hard on it.
Yeah,
like,
I remember that.
Mate, we're going. There was so many times. I think when I think I tore it for the 4th time or the 5th time. I can't remember if we were in the club or if we were at the uni in pre-season. And I remember Moosey was just like, fuck, man, if you're a horse, we'd shoot you. Like, like Wayne's just looking for an excuse to cut you. And I was like, oh my God, man.
Shit, yeah,
So I'm going in there, this little thing where I'm like, fuck, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, what am I doing? I can't even stay on the park. Like, all you want to do is play first grade, but you can't. Or even just like be in the mix to potentially be picked. But it's tricky. But to be honest, I look at that time as a huge learning curve, but also like a huge amount of resilience.
Yeah.
Is there any times throughout your career, whether it's at Bronx or post, that you were like, it was so hard in that moment, but then you also moved on and you learnt a lot from it?
Yeah, definitely the knees were the hardest thing. You know, coming out of school, you know, being touted as one of the best schoolboys that year to come out of, you know, high school, and then to play 1 year 20s, and then I did my ACL, and then I came back, did my my ACL again, you know. And I was like, frick, like I'm not gonna make it, you know. And those were really hard days, really dark days. And I feel like it got a lot darker because I could feel around me that people were kind of like giving up on me. Yeah. The Bronx came to me and they're like, hey, why don't you try this IT course? You can sit in with our stats guy, like help him out, blah, blah, like this and that.
Like probably trying to be helpful, but in your mind it's like...
I was like, they're like, fuck, I'm done here. So I started that IT course, and I remember getting to a point and I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm not fucking doing this, you know, I'm fucking making it. But yeah, a lot of my injuries definitely taught me a lot of resilience. The first ACL, I probably didn't deal with them. I didn't understand the work that had to be put in. The second ACL, I was obviously devastated in the beginning, but then I, you know, turned that around and, you know, ended up making it, and, you know, just taught me a lot about, you know, who I was and what I needed to do to stay at the top.
What are those things?
To not worry about what other people think or are feeling. You know, I think a lot of the noise that comes in, you can kind of feel, you know, like I said, with the Bronx putting me in the IT course, I could kind of feel that people were doubting me already. And, you know, I used to listen to a lot of outside noise, and it really dictated every decision that I used to make. And that's probably something that I do now. You know, I know what I'm good at. It really taught me that I know to know what I'm good at, and to work hard, and to never listen to what everyone else thinks.
Man, I love that piece. And zooming in on that piece, are you aware of that in the moment, or does that come later after already going through it?
Definitely reflecting. I don't think it comes until, you know, there's an aha moment. It wasn't until I had my daughter in 2015, and I had a few shit years of injuries, and then I had a really good year, and then I had another shit year of injuries, and then my daughter was born, and I was just like, that was kind of my aha moment of like, fuck, no wonder, like, you know, I've been put through all this shit. Everything's been so hard, and that really taught me, you know, when she came along, I was like, fuck, it's, you know, it's taught me a lot, you know. There's so many times that I wanted to give up and you know, I was really struggling mentally, and it wasn't until Jayla was born and I was like, shit, this is what like life's about.
What is it about having kids? Because everyone talks about that, right? Like everyone talks about when you have your kids, like it changes your perspective, like you'll do anything for them, like. But like, what is it about it? Like, what is it about having kids that shifts that mindset? Just
nothing else matters. Like everything that you think is huge and overwhelming is just like, the kids don't see that. They see, you know, right through that, and they just want dad, you know. They just want to, you know, want their parent to be there. They want their parent to have fun with them, you know. They don't care about all the, you know, the problems in the world. They don't care about, you know, financial problems, you know. Everything you feel as a parent, they don't feel at all. And it's the biggest eye-opener, you know. All the big Christmases and birthdays and stuff like that, it's all fun again, you know. You get to an age where you're like, oh, it's my birthday again, yeah.
Getting on that, I've had a couple birthdays.
Yeah. But everything's just fun again. Like you get to see what, you know, kids seeing things for the first time in their life, and it's just like, it's a really beautiful thing to see. And it's just, you know, no matter what I was going through, you know, I was so grateful that, you know, my daughter came at a good time, and it's just, you know, gave me that moment to, you know, that this is why I've, you know, fought to be where I wanted to be.
I think that's such a cool piece. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to know that you can come home and that like, to be honest, they don't care.
No.
They don't give a shit. They just want to see dad.
Yeah.
And they want to see, and want to have fun with you, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. That's the best.
Zooming in on the on your knees when you were going through that tough time, is there, like, who do you lean on? Is it Jess? Is it the boys? Like, did you feel comfortable having that conversation with your teammates? Like, who are your support network that you would probably lean on in that time?
I probably didn't. I was young as well, and I wasn't willing to talk.
Yeah.
But I was really lucky to have Jess. Like we've been together since we were 16, and we've been through so many different life lessons and kind of periods with each other that, you know, it's made us, you know, so much stronger as a couple. But like if I didn't have someone there to just, you know, just be around me, I'm really big on when someone's going through something tough, you don't have to be there to, you know, chat the ear off or talk to them, or you just feet on ground around you helps a lot. And I had those solid feet on the ground around me for so long, and Jess was that person. And just any little whinge or any little, you know, cry I wanted to have, you know, she was the person. And you know, although she didn't have experience from what I was going through, you know, she always was in my corner and would always stick up for me and always help me and understand what I was going through was shit. So she was definitely my person, and yeah, still is.
Mate, that's so cool. And it's also cool that, like, you guys have been together for so long, right? Like, is it like 16 years or something?
Yes, 16 or 17.
16, mate, we know. That's what. But that's so what, how has the relationship, like, evolved over time? Because obviously you were together so young. Did you feel like you could have those conversations with her at the start of the relationship versus now? Or, like, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, it's we're definitely a lot more open than what we used to be. We were really young and went through the whole nightclub phase and stuff. And I was a douchebag, bro. I was a dickhead.
What do you mean?
I was just a dickhead. I wanted to party with the boys, you know, and like, you know, I was 18 with a missus, you know. I should be with my missus.
Yeah.
But you know, I was always trying to do the cool thing by the boys and the right thing by the boys, and I was just a douchebag. So I'm so lucky she stayed around.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely at a point now where we, you know, fighting's really healthy in a relationship. I feel like a lot of people say, you know, they fight all the time, but we don't fight all the time. But when we do have an argument, we always settle it, and it's kind of clear and in the open. We apologize, blah blah blah. And I feel like we moved to Australia, and we just had each other for so long that we haven't had families to go to, and we haven't had people to disappear and friends to go and like whinge about each other to. So we've always kind of come back and sorted the argument out, and now we're kind of, you know, we're over it in a day, and yeah.
I think that's so cool. But like relationships, yes, but I think there's something special about having long friends, like friends for like 5, 10, 15 plus years.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, but there's something about it. Like if you, like, I've got mates from when I was like 3 or 4 who are still like my dearest mates. They're not in footy, they're not in sport, but they've seen the progression from like when you're a little grom to like what you are now. And I think there's something really special about that. So when I hear you talk about you and Jess and how it's evolved over time and how you were in the party phase and now your parents, like, I think that's such a special piece.
Yeah, definitely. I always say about friendships, if you can sit someone in silence, like that's when you know you've got a good friend.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, they surround themselves with so many people because they feel like they need all those people around them. But if you've got, you know, good quality friends around you, and if you can sit in each other's silence, and I feel like, you know, you're good mates.
I love that. We actually have a question from Jess while we're on the topic that I will play.
Hey babe, I know the last few years since retiring from footy have been a journey, to say the least. Trying to find balance between your career and being a dad, I'm sure has felt impossible at times. Now that you're a few years in, what has helped you achieve balance, and what is your best piece of advice to anyone who is trying to juggle a family and a business?
It's a beautiful question.
Damn.
She's good, hey?
Jeez.
Do you want to listen to that again, or you got it?
Nah, I'm good. Best piece of advice would be to understand your strengths. I feel like coming out of a professional sporting environment, we think we're good at sport and that's it. But we're also resilient. We're also extremely determined. We know what sacrifice looks like, and I feel like in the professional environment, a lot of people don't know that. So understand your strengths, and don't just think you're an athlete coming into the real world. Know that you're really good at some things and just apply those in different areas. And that's what I've tried to do. We were speaking about it earlier about performing under pressure. A lot of creators don't like shooting weddings because it's high pressure environment, and I'm at weddings chill, you know, like I'm chilling. I'm enjoying the day with the couple, you know. You know, I understood what I was good at. I'm a really hard worker, and that hasn't changed. I know what sacrifice looks like. I'll sacrifice going out and getting a beer and stuff like that when I know I've got work to do. But yeah, so understanding what you're good at, and then probably getting back into a routine has helped a lot. Training frequently. I got really sick a couple of years ago because I lost that balance. I wasn't training, I wasn't sleeping, and I feel like that took a real big toll on my business as well. So that's kind of helped me a lot as well. So yeah, understanding what you're good at and a good routine.
I think that's awesome, man. And it's cool. It's cool that you recognize what you wanted to do while you were still in footy. Like I remember when we were at Bronx, like you were like the OG of shooting content.
Yeah.
Like and to be honest, in a space that's like super masculine, like getting out of your box, like, and I'm sure you'd have 1,000 stories of boys trying to put you back in the box of like being in sport, because no one was shooting content in clubs, and now like there's obviously so many creators in like the footy environment.
Yeah.
How did you know that that's what you wanted to do, and then why did you keep doing it after the boys were like, fuck, what are you doing, George?
Yeah, some funny stories. I always said that I was gonna just do it to build my brand. I really wanted to build my brand on YouTube and kind of get myself out there. For that reason, I knew how important having your own personal brand outside of sport was. So that's the only reason I kind of got into that space. And I said, I'm not gonna be a videographer. I'm not gonna be a photographer. And I remember myself saying that to friends. And then the more I started shooting, the more I've started vlogging, and the more gear I got, I was like, frick, I really like this. I really enjoy it. I was buying new cameras. And that kind of just snowballed into like another passion. I was taking my camera everywhere we went. You know, I was going away on for games and just taking my camera. I just always had my camera with me, a bit like when I was a kid, and always having a footy with me, you know. So I was really lucky that, you know, I was super passionate about that. So yeah, when I was deciding whether to keep playing or to retire, I had something else I was passionate about, and that's pretty much how I started. I just dove in straight away.
How do you think, because I imagine there's probably a lot of people who are like, well, that's great that you found your passion, but how do I find mine? Like, and do you have any like tips or advice, or did it something that just sort of fell into your lap?
A bit of both. I think definitely got to try things. You've definitely got to try new things when you're playing. You can't just get home and sit on the PlayStation. I was doing that, but I was also at networking events and stuff like that. I was going around to sponsors and just talking and getting some life experience out of, you know, footy. You know, you're surrounded by so many people that are really successful in business, and you know, I understood that. So when we were at events, I'd just like going and, you know, if I had 2 or 3 people that I always went and spoke to, that was great. But yeah, I'm always big on just try something. Pick up a camera or go, you know, pick up a hammer, whatever it is, just go and try something while you're doing it. You know, you've got, like you said, you've got a bunch of mates that are not in sport or anything, but they're probably doing other professions that you could probably go and just give a crack, you know, just for one day. And it's fucking probably fun, you know. Like imagine going to a work site with your mates and just fucking around. Yeah. And like, oh, mate, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. Fuck this.
I think that's the best. That was the best thing that I did when I was playing footy, when I was like, I was curious about a lot of things and I knew that footy wasn't going to be forever. So I would try, like, bro, I was trying everything. Like, I liked property, so I did a couple of days, like, in mortgage brokerage. I loved food and, like, restaurants and cafes. So I was, like, food prepping at Labat in Burleigh. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was trying all these different careers. And then obviously finished up earlier than probably what I would have liked to. But when I finished up, I knew everything that I didn't want to do, which was super important. And it actually kind of helped me because I had sort of had an idea that I wanted to do more in psychology, in the mental health space. And while I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I know all these things that I didn't want to do. And I think that actually helps.
Definitely.
So that's why I really subscribe to what you said of, like, just try different things. Yeah. And I think, but also putting yourself in that position. I had a really good, really good conversation with Jess last night. That's how we got the voice memo, and I had a really good chat with her. And she said one of the things that you did really well while you were in your sport was, you're a good person, but you networked really well. And people think networking, but it was pretty much just being a good person and talking to people outside your box.
Yeah.
And she said you did that really well and you never burnt any bridges. And it just made me think and reflect. And I was like, it's crazy how well you can do in life when you're just a good person and work hard.
It's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Crazy. Yeah. It's like, it's free, bro. It's not hard.
No.
Like it doesn't cost you anything to be a good person.
No.
Just be kind. Like if you can be anything, be kind.
Man, and I think when I think about the crew that you were knocking around with a lot in at the Bronx, Blairy, Lex, like for me, like that looked like that was your little crew.
Yeah.
And then even now, like a couple of the nicest blokes in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it seems like that's the people that you surround yourself, like that's just a natural thing, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was really lucky. I had some really good friends and we all had the same values, you know. Lex is, you know, one of his best like traits as a human is his humility, you know. He'll treat, you know, the janitor the same way he'll treat the CEO, you know, and that he taught me a lot about that. You know, like if you'll probably see a lot of similarities in both him and I. You know, we'll walk up to complete strangers and like, "Sup, my bro? What's up? How are you?" Like, and then, you know, people are like kind of like, "What the hell?" Like, you know, like Lex and I, and we probably like, you know, we're a lot similar in that regard. Whereas we treat everyone exactly the same, regardless of what you do or what color you are or what gender you are, or whatever you do. We're like, you know, we're there for you.
Man, I love that. And even like, because we had a RLPA golf day with all the past players last week, and this episode will go live in a couple of weeks, so it would have been a couple of weeks ago if you are listening. But that's like your energy, like your energies are so infectious. Like I remember when I walked in, it was like you, Lexi, I think Nickers was there, and it was just like, you just feel so great. Like I think the energy is infectious, man. And that's like, and it's not hard. Like people think that that's such a hard thing, but if you shine like good energy on someone else, like that becomes infectious, and then you want to do it to other people. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And our crew, I think the thing I love about our crew as well, and people will probably pull me up on this, is I talk so much shit, bro, but like anyone can get it. Yeah. I'm not, no one's safe, you know. I'm not treating anyone different. I talk so much shit, but like it's from a good place, you know. Like I'm not treating, you know, I'm not talking shit to, you know, that someone down here and someone up here. Like everyone can get it. Yeah. And that's what I love a lot about our group of friends. We all talk shit to each other, but then we all treat each other with respect and kindness as well.
Mate, you alluded to the first year of your transition where you stopped playing football, but then you also were talking around the content space. And mate, to be honest, I'd really like to zoom in on that time because I know a lot of players do struggle with this. And I know you've spoken about it before. I got to watch the LSKD documentary, Don't Wait, which, to be honest, man, was an incredible documentary. It was one of the coolest things. I remember Michaela sent it to me, I think just before it was going to go live, and I'll never forget where I was. I was in Coogee in the main street, and I was listening especially to your part of it because that's what interested me the most. But I'd never seen a side of you that was so like vulnerable, and to be honest, I didn't know what you were going through, and it made me think. And to be honest, like I'm fucking crying in the street of Coogee because it was so vulnerable. I'd love to zoom in on that time of your life if you're willing to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. It was a extremely tough time. You know, I was juggling whether I wanted to keep playing and build a business, and obviously 2020 I was still in the NRL. We took the massive 50% pay cut. Yeah. You know, and my bills still stayed the same, you know. So 2020 was, you know, really tough because we did lose half our money. We had, you know, investments and stuff like that we were trying to pay off. So I ate most of our savings up that year, just trying to cover the bills. And then the following year, you know, starting a business, trying to cover the same bills with nowhere near as much money as I was getting on footy. And it just got to a point, you know, we had no savings left. I, you know, pretty much used all my retirement money in that 1 year, just trying to stay afloat. We were so lucky that my dad let us live with them for a couple of years because if we didn't have that, I honestly don't know what we would have done. And the hardest thing, we were speaking about it earlier, but the hardest thing as a dad is you feel like you're the provider for the family. And I felt like I couldn't do that. And that was a really tough thing to kind of go through. And I'll always remember there was this conversation. Jess and I were outside a photo shoot, and something had happened, and we were arguing, and it got to a point where I just snapped, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. We've got no money left. It was so hard, and I snapped at her, and and I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have let her in on what I was going through, and I didn't. And looking back now, that was extremely on me, but I didn't want to bring her into the financial problems that we were going through. Sorry. And that was looking back and reflecting on that was probably something that I've done better over the last few years, when there has been like lull periods, and being a videographer and creator, we do have these fluctuations and money coming in and going out. So I'm a lot more open with Jess, but that first year was so hard, and it was such a hard juggle. Getting into the camera space, not being an essential worker, so I couldn't work. I was still learning the processes of taking deposits for photo shoots and weddings and stuff like that. I wasn't taking any deposits, and obviously weddings were getting cancelled because they couldn't have them, which was fair on them. There's no no hate towards the couples, but I wasn't taking any deposits. I was blanking out all these weekends, and then I wouldn't have any work, and I was just like, what am I going to do? So that was a really, really tough time in my life, and I've dealt with it a lot better now, and she was a dark time for sure.
Because I know, mate, transitioning out of football is going to be like tricky regardless. It doesn't matter if you're on like the biggest contract or if you're even on minimum wage. Like, it's always going to be tricky.
Yeah.
But your situation was so unique because we were in COVID, we were still playing, but we had a 50% pay cut. But then clubs weren't signing anyone. Like, clubs went on a full shift because they didn't know what the next year was going to look like. And so I remember there was a heap accrued that, like, just if you didn't have a contract, if you were off contract that year, no one was getting signed. And so how do you? And I think probably a lot of anxiety, or a lot of guys that I was talking to, they had a lot of anxiety because it was just uncertain.
Yeah.
Are we going to play? Do I have to go back on the tools? Like, am I going to have to lug brick? Like, what does that look like? And so I look at your situation where it's just like eating through your financials, right? And to be honest, man, financial and relationships are two of the biggest contributors of male suicide between ages 17 and 44.
Yeah.
Financial and relationships.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they go hand in hand. And so when I look at your situation, like, naturally that is going to be an incredibly tough and dark time.
Yeah.
Because it was such a unique situation.
Yeah. It was a really tough time. Like, obviously being in financial, hardship, it took a huge toll. And there were thoughts like, I've got my life insurance, like, will my kids still get that if I commit suicide or something like that? Sorry.
You good, bro? Do you want to say?
Nah, I'm sweet. Like, those are the thoughts that were going through my head, But one thing I have learned through business, with the ebbs and flows of business, that you'll always come out of that period, and it's something that footy's taught me a lot of. But the hardest thing about footy was, you were going through those ebbs and flows of injuries and stuff like that, but you're always getting paid. Like, there was never worry about financials and stuff like that. I was out for a whole year, I was still getting paid. Whereas like in the real world, that doesn't happen. So there was some dark times, and I'm just grateful that it's taught me a lot about what I can do and things I need to do to kind of keep me out of that.
Mate, thank you so much for sharing, bro. Like, that's it's incredible, and I know it's hard, man. It's hard to be so open and vulnerable like that. So I already have a huge amount of respect for you, like, once I saw the documentary, but for coming on and being so open, because, mate, there would be so many people going through exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that you can come out, because you're obviously so influential in community, like, it's like, well, we can hear Geordie talk through it. And what I'm really keen to, I guess, understand is just like, well, where do you go to next? Like you said, you talked about that time about the life insurance and with your kids and with your family. Like, where do you go next? Like, how do you navigate? Because you're here now and you're, from the outside looking in, it looks like you're thriving.
Yeah.
what are the steps you took? Like, how do you get out of that space?
I was like, that moment I snapped to Jess was probably the best thing I could have done, because she was like, I didn't know this. Like, you didn't tell me. So like, just like that weight off my shoulders helped a lot. Like, just telling her. And I know a lot of people don't probably have that person, but there's someone there that will listen. All you got to do is tell one person your problems, to relieve that stress and get it off your shoulders, and just to like, because there's so many people going through exactly the same thing that you are. I shared a couple of things a couple of weeks ago about being a parent and heading into Christmas and how it can be scary. I didn't share it because it's scary for us, but I've been there and I know how scary Christmas can be when you're like, shit, how am I going to pay for the bills? As well as treating my kids for Christmas, you know? That was like, you know, a few tough years there where I was thinking that. So like sharing that stuff on my social media, it's not me asking for sympathy. It's me sharing it so I know, so other people out there that are feeling the same thing and the same pressures understand that they're not alone. And I feel like when people get into those dark holes that I've been in, you feel so lonely and you just feel like no one understands and no one else can see what you're going through. But there's so many people out there that are going through, you know, exactly the same thing, and they might have that person to talk to, or they might have someone to talk to. That you think you don't, but there's always someone. There's always someone that's gonna be willing to listen, and that weight off your shoulders after just talking to someone and telling them your problems, you're not gonna weigh them down. And I feel like that was something that I went through a lot. Is I didn't want to weigh Jess down as well with my problems, whereas both of us could have been carrying, you know, the load to make it a little bit lighter. And now it's helped so much being able to talk to Jess and being really open, especially with our financial, you know, problems, has been something that's helped me a lot.
It's like a problem shared is a problem halved.
100%, yeah, it's so true.
I remember when I heard that, I was just like, that is incredible. And then and to be honest, like, I think I've been similar to you in a sense, growing up, not wanting to share certain things because it's like the blokey thing to do, and you get taught not to share. But then once you've done it a couple times and you've been in a super dark place and you think you can't get out, or you can't see the way, and it's tough and it's shit, and it's, to be honest, mate, it's an awful place to be. But then once you do share, whether that is with a friend, a family member, psychologist, I know there's a lot of people who don't feel like they have that person, but there are some incredible helplines, Lifeline, Movember, like there are some incredible helplines that you can call and you can talk to.
Yeah.
Go see your GP to get a mental health plan, to be able to talk to a psychologist. You've got 6 to 10 free sessions there. Yeah. And these are the things, like I'm conscious that we are privileged, that we have incredible people in our lives. I know that, we know that, but a lot of people don't think they have it, or they think they can't talk to that person. It's just like, there are solutions out there. Yeah. Mental health plans. Go talk to your GP. Like, go talk to Lifeline. You can call them. It's a free call. I think those things are super important, just to know that you've got them in your back pocket.
100%. Yeah. So helpful.
Mate, I'm so grateful. Mate, to be honest, I'm so grateful. Like, the fact that you're coming on here, I think it's a beautiful place, and I think that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be hearing this and be like, you know what, I feel like I'll be able to navigate it out. Yeah. And the fact, and even the whole thing. And do you think you and Jess, having gone through that situation, do you think it brings you like closer together?
Yeah, definitely. We're like the best we've ever been right now. You know, like we never get sick of each other. You know, you hear these couples that are like, you know, I can't wait for my husband to go to work, or I can't wait for my partner to get out of the house, or something like that. Like, we would sit together and do everything together, like without anyone or whatever.
16 years later, man.
Bro. Yeah, I know. Like, we just love each other's company, you know. We'd do anything, all the fun things that I do. It just doesn't feel as fun if she's, you know, her and the kids aren't there. So we're in a great place, and we're like, never been stronger. And
you can see it, like, to be honest, you display it so well on your socials. That's why I love your socials, like the big family shots of you guys all together. Like, that's so wholesome and like warm to see. Yeah. I think that's a really cool thing. But the balance, like, you've started your own business now, which we've discussed. You're doing a lot of stuff in the content space. You've got S30. You've got a lot on your plate. How do you balance that between like being a business owner or a multiple business owner, but then also balancing the family life as well, and then also you want to train as well? How do you make it work from like a practical sense?
Work can wait, bro. I've got to a point where, you know, work can wait. The moment I spoke about earlier where I got really sick, I was prioritizing work over everything, over training, over family, everything. I would go and shoot, and then I would literally go and edit all day till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd do that every single day. I've always got into a point now where it's like work can wait. My health, if my health deteriorates, then they're not going to get it anyway. So like my work has taken a little bit longer, but it's also allowed me to be in a better headspace to provide and produce better work. So that's been a big thing. I might be looking after myself and my family, but my work's thriving because of that.
Gotcha, man. I think that's such a cool piece, and even the the conversation that I had with Jess last night is like that was part of the conversation. It's just like life is so busy, like life is incredibly busy, and that was another thing. I'm sort of curious for my own personal thing. It's just like, well, are we waiting for the sense that it's just like we're just not going to be busy? Like we're just waiting for that time where we're going to be fine. It's like I feel like that's never going to come. It's just like. And what she said, which I really subscribed with, was just like you just got to go with the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, you just got to ride the wave.
You just got to ride the wave, which I think is a beautiful piece.
Yeah, there'll be super quiet times, and you're like, why is this so quiet? And then there'll be super hectic times, and it's just like, like this year has been crazy for me. There was a period from March to August where I was just flying, traveling, spending so much time away, working lots, and then I got back and I'm like. Fuck, I got to do so much cool shit in that time, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. You just gotta ride the waves and be where your feet are.
Beautiful, I love that, man. Before we wrap things up, this is a little bit rogue and a little bit left field, but but I was like in the lead up, like I love obviously like talking to friends and family members. Like I had a really good chat with Jess last night. I was talking to Lex last night as well, and. He just sent through a question for you, and because I was talking to him this morning, and I was just like, "Hey man, just checking in. Do you mind sending that photo? Me and George are recording early. We've got an early podcast." And I was like, "That's why I've been half looking at my phone to see if he's gonna send it in."
Greg, what do we got?
But I don't know.
Really?
Well, I haven't listened to it. He sent it in. What is it? It's he sent it in 3 minutes ago. So that's what I mean. We're mid podcast. It's a minute 14, and so I feel like there's going to be 2 questions in there. But
all right,
this will be rogue. But let's just see where we end up.
Good morning, boys. I hope the podcast is going well. I got 2 questions for you, Geordie. The first one is. What would be some advice that you would give to your debutant Jordan Kahu self? And what I mean by that is if there was anything that you would change in the way that you prepped, the way that you took care of your body, but also the way that you took care of your money and you invested. Would you change anything? And what would be your advice to your younger Jordan Kahu debutant self?
Okay. My advice for the playing aspect of that question would just to be you were picked for a reason. I walked into that team thinking I was there to fill a jersey and I was there to kind of just fulfill some space that they needed in that position. But I was a fucking good player, bro. And I didn't realize that. I was winning there. I missed my first tackle. They scored a try, and that was kind of like shit, bro. You gotta fucking wake up. You're here. You're good enough for this. And that was something that I would tell my younger self, just from the playing side of things, is to back yourself, and to be a little bit more arrogant about it, be confident in yourself. I was walking out onto the field like, shit, this guy's going to carve me up today. Gotcha. Shit, this guy's going to beat me. That was kind of my mindset when I was playing. Be a little bit more arrogant and back your ability. On the money side of things, I didn't get good money early. My first contract was 20 grand. My first salary was 20 grand. I got a sign-on bonus, I think, which was 7.5 grand or something. I bought my dad some golf clubs.
Gotcha.
And I bought him a skydiving ticket, which took up half the money. And then I think the rest I went and partied. The one thing that I would say to kids now is to find some investment groups that can help you invest into some really good, property or stocks. But I'd also get someone to look after your super, especially when you're getting good money early on. If you can maximize that super, when you don't have to do any of the hard work or anything. I jumped on towards the end of my career with Fletcher Holmes, and what he did for my super, I was just like, damn, I wish he could have done that from the beginning. So I would probably say that find some people that can help you with some good investments, and then get your super sorted, because clubs can change their super provider every year, and it all chops and changes, and those super providers aren't probably doing the best return for you anyway. So I would say to look at that,
and making sure you don't have 3 different super funds and having it all together and starting early, man. These are the little things.
Getting all that stuff right.
Yeah, I love that. I think this is the second part of the question.
Here we go.
Second part, I know the podcast is around mental health. I guess I'd love to hear, or the listeners would love to hear, how do you deal with your own mental health? How do you keep yourself sane? How do you keep yourself motivated? And in those low times, how do you pick yourself back up? Because you've been a great friend for me in my low times. So I'd like to know, how do you deal with that and pick yourself back up when you're not feeling your best? Sure, boys. Much love.
Yeah, I probably don't give Lex enough credit. Back when I did my back-to-back ACLs, he was probably the only person there that did believe in me when, the club was, all that IT stuff that I was saying. He was the one person that probably did believe in me and always was like, bro, we'll get through this, He wrote my initials on his wrist every game, and when he did score, he'd hold his wrist up, Like, for what he'd done when I was in that period, for me mentally was just so like, I can't thank him enough. And I think that's why we're so, so close as mates, because when we've been there for each other in the low times. But yeah, one piece of advice going back to earlier would be to definitely speak up and to share your problems with someone, because like I said, what'd you say? The
problem shared is a problem halved.
Yep. So that, and then I take a lot of, I love helping people. So obviously at the gym, I get that sense of, helping people on their fitness journey. But then I also, donate to Living, every second month, I get commissions from LSKD that would go in my pocket that would obviously help me financially, and it would really help me a lot. But I get a lot of gratitude out of putting that money into Living, knowing that they're, helping the community. So that helps me a lot.
And I know that's something that you don't talk about a lot. When Michaela, I spoke to Michaela from, she used to be at LSKD, and she was saying, she's like, yeah, George donates all of his commission from his discount code, goes to Living. I was just like, firstly, that is so incredible, because I've never heard anyone do that before, and to be honest, like, that makes me want to do that. Yeah. I'm like, how can we align with certain brands and like do things that like will align with your own values? And obviously, like the stuff you do with LSKD is awesome. But the ability to do that, and it's like that would help you. Like that would help a lot, especially going through tough times. But the fact that you take that out anyway and you donate that to a mental health organization, I think is super respectful, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Man, I've enjoyed this. Thank you, mate. To be honest, thank you so much for coming on. When I listened to the LSKD documentary, it gave me a sense of, obviously I had no idea what you were going through, and obviously, like, I respected you and I looked up to you when I first came to the Bronx. Like, you and Lex were 2 of the guys that I just think were so warm and welcome. And so I always had a lot of love for you. But then when I saw that, it amplified. So, man, thank you so much for everything that you're doing in the community, with the gym, with your content. And, bro, I can't wait to see, like, what the next couple of years is going to look like for you, man, because I think it's going to be super beautiful.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'd like to give you credit on all the stuff you're doing for all us past athletes as well, bro. A lot of us, don't know what we're doing, and having people like you in positions that you're in and so willing and fucking eager to help us out, bro, it's super refreshing, and we're lucky as a whole ex-athlete group to have someone like you, bro. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Well, mate, I love my mates. And to be honest, I know I'm very fortunate enough that like we've got such an awesome crew here on the Goldie. Like, don't get me wrong, like past players all around Oz, of course. But I think I've got a special relationship to the crew on the Goldie, given that I was at Bronx and the Titans. And so even when we did that RLPA golf day, it's like, these are our mates.
Yeah.
Like, these are our guys.
Yeah,
and so for us to like settle in and play some golf in the rain and have a couple of drinks, like, I think that was so fun.
Definitely. We need to run that golf day back ASAP.
Bro, annual next year. Before I forget, I do have a gift for you that I will give you. Give me one. This is terrible podcasting, but stay with me.
Sick. Thank you, brother.
I know we talked about the whoops earlier this morning.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, bro. I know we were talking about it, and so you've got you'll have 2 whoops there.
Oh, bro. Thank you.
And I know we talked about the subscription models, but you'll have 12 months on them, so you won't have to pay the subscription.
So I bring them back to you, or?
No, you've got 12 months on them. So if you wanted to have a play with either yourself or or with Jess or whoever, what we found is like if you do it with someone, if you've got someone, then it's really cool to track your recovery because it obviously measures sleep, stress, and strain. And I think they're really cool. I've been having mine for over a year, and I think I was telling you before, like I'll look at mine when I'm overtraining and when I'm in the red. I'd be like, oh, I prioritize sleep, maybe pull back from the gym. But yeah, man, you got some stuff there.
Thank you so much, bro. That's crazy.
That's so
Thank
funny.
you so much, bro.
My pleasure. A little Keegan and Company hat.
Yes, sick.
The company we keep. And
dope.
then a little box from Lulu, one of our partners, Lululemon.
Might have to blank that out.
I know. We can edit that. We got a love for both brands. So there's.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on, man.